Hello to all the esteemed viewers of Jonathan George Villaria's What Emporium. I'm Jonathan George Villaria, and I'm absolutely thrilled to share with you how to get band our understanding of the world through the English language. Our videos encompass a diverse range of topics such as literature, philosophy, history, astronomy, biology, and more, offering you a comprehensive and enriching learning experience. Whether you're new to our channel or a seasoned learner, our carefully curated videos are designed to captivate and enlighten, empowering you to elevate your language skills. In modern, democratic societies, the concept of separation of powers is a fundamental principle of political governance. It ensures that power is not concentrated in the hands of a single entity, but rather divided among different branches of government. One prominent model of this concept is the system of checks and balances, commonly known as the separation of powers, which is a cornerstone of the doctrine of constitutionalism and the basis for the theory of liberal democracy. One notable embodiment of this model is the concept of tripartite division of power. Tripartite division of powers or separation of powers in the political system of free states, where power is divided among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. This essay will delve into the concept of the separation of powers, specifically focusing on the three branches of government and their roles in ensuring political liberty and protecting the rights of citizens, with a special emphasis on the United States as an exemplar of this system. The foundation of the STEAM theory of bourgeois rule of law lies in the crucial concept of tripartite separation of powers. Tripartite separation of powers is a game-changing notion in the realm of bourgeois rule of law. It's all about dividing and allocating the state powers to various independent organs, like the legislative power bestowed upon the parliament, the executive power vested in the government, and the judicial power entrusted to the courts. Following Montesquieu's ingenious model of checks and balances, no state organ holds supremacy or absolute control over all three powers. The beauty of this theory is that it prevents despotism while simultaneously curbing and constraining the overreach of state authority. The theory of tripartite separation of powers has become a cornerstone principle of bourgeois rule of law, revered and cherished by legal scholars and practitioners alike. Look no further than the illustrious United States Constitution for a quintessential example of the theory of tripartite separation of powers in action. The state apparatus is meticulously organized in parallel, with state organs mutually monitoring and checking each other, leaving no room for any single organ to wield unchecked power in the political fabric of the nation. Tripartite separation of powers, also known as trias politica, with its three powers of the state legislative, executive, and judicial, distinctly allocated to three independent organs. This ensures that these three organs operate autonomously, safeguarding the cherished value of freedom. Political freedom, also known as the system of free governance, is a structure where the supreme power is meticulously divided into three distinct powers: legislative, executive, and judicial. Firstly, the legislative power, which embodies the collective will of the nation, belongs to the entire populace, and is rightfully bestowed upon the representative assembly of the people, the esteemed National Assembly. Secondly, the executive power is responsible for diligently implementing the established laws. It is tasked with carrying out the laws and policies of the government with utmost care and precision. Lastly, the judicial power is entrusted with the solemn duty of dispensing justice. ensuring that wrongdoers are held accountable and conflicts between individuals are justly resolved. The judges, who are carefully selected from the people, are bound by the sacrosanct laws of the land. In their noble pursuit of justice, the powers of legislation, execution, and judiciary are rightfully delegated to different branches of the government. The legislative power is entrusted to the esteemed parliament. The executive power is diligently carried out by the government, and judicial power is carefully wielded by the review courts. The very essence of this theory is that state power tends to naturally and inevitably expand and strengthen its role wherever power exists. There is a pervasive tendency for abuse and authoritarianism to arise, irrespective of the individuals or entities that hold such power. Therefore, in order to effectively safeguard the fundamental liberties of citizens and prevent abuses of power by those in authority, it is absolutely imperative to establish robust legal frameworks that proactively limit the powers of the state. The most efficacious approach to combating abuse of power is through the judicious employment of legal means that ensure power is not concentrated but rather diffused and distributed. To effectively curb the powers of the state, the initial and foremost step is to actually decentralize power through the process of power sharing, and subsequently to diligently ensure that the branches of power that have been delegated operate strictly within the confines of the law. As such, the concept of the separation of powers not only encompasses the horizontal division of powers, but also encompasses the vertical division, which pertains to the allocation of powers among local governments, provincial or state governments, central governments, or high level organizations that exist above the state. The core concept of horizontal division of powers in Vietnamese is a crucial mechanism that safeguards the balance of state power across diverse branches of government, preventing any single individual or entity from wielding absolute authority. The fundamental principle underlying horizontal division of powers entails the allocation of state power into distinct branches, each vested with specific functions and responsibilities, such as the legislative, executive, and judiciary branches. These branches operate autonomously, fulfilling their respective roles without encroaching upon the domain of others. The powers among these branches are carefully balanced, with none holding superiority over the others, and they mutually monitor, constrain, and counteract each other to prevent any misuse of power. At present, horizontal decentralization manifests in three primary forms: rigid separation of powers, flexible separation of powers, and separation of powers in a mixed republican system. For instance, in the United States and the Philippines, a rigid separation of powers is enforced in a presidential republican system, whereas the United Kingdom and Japan adopt a flexible separation of powers in the parliamentary system. Furthermore, France and Russia embrace a separation of powers in the mixed republican system, where the government is answerable to both the people and the parliament. As the famous saying goes, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The principle of horizontal division of power serves as a vital safeguard against concentration of power, ensuring the protection of individual rights and upholding the rule of law. Vertical decentralization is all about spreading the power of the state thing by dividing up authority between the central and the local governments. This concept is characterized by several key elements: establishing elected state bodies at the local level, clearly delineating tasks, responsibilities and powers between the central and local governments in specific domains, granting local governments autonomy in their organization and operation. Decentralization can take the form of territorial decentralization involving the active participation of local communities and oversight by local authorities. And the same goes, sharing is caring. And vertical decentralization aims to distribute power and responsibility more evenly for the benefit of all stakeholders. When it comes to the power and role of the United States Congress in legislating and overseeing national defense, it's worth noting that the Congress is the cornerstone of the country's legislative system, enshrined in Constitution and comprised of the Senate and the House of Representatives. These two chambers hold the delicate balance of power with the executive branch. For a bill to become law, it needs to stamp of approval from both the Senate and the House of Representatives, followed by the President note. If the President does not give the green light, the bill goes back to originating chamber for reconsideration. The Congress wields control over the purse strings and budget when it comes to national defense, while the President dons the mantle of the Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces of the armed forces. The Senate is tasked with conducting trials related to abuse of power, even when it involves the president. However, the president still wields significant clout, serving as the head of state and the chief of the executive branch, and playing a pivotal role in decisions related to national defense policy. The Congress plays an indispensable role in the reviewing and approving the President's national defense policies. The allocation and limitation of powers between the Congress and the President ensure the autonomy of the Congress in legislating. The Senate bears the responsibility of trying cases involving abuse of power, including those involving the President. The House of Representatives holds the authority to kickstart impeachment proceedings and remove the accused from office, even before trial in the judiciary branch. As the famous going to say, with great power comes to great responsibilities. And the Congress shoulders the weighty tasks of safeguarding the nation's defense interest through its legislative and oversight functions. In conclusion, the system of separation of powers, specifically the concept of the tripartite division of powers, is a crucial element of political structure of free states. It serves as a mechanism to ensure checks and balances, prevent abuse of power, and safeguard the rights of and liberties of citizens. The legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government play distinct roles in this system, with the aim of maintaining a healthy balance of power and protecting the democratic principles of political governance. The United States serves as a notable example of a country that implements the concept of separation of powers in its political system. And this experience provides valuable insights into the importance of the system in ensuring political freedom and safeguarding the rights of citizens in a democratic society. I dearly appreciate your presence in this episode. Your questions, comments, and feedback are incredibly valuable, so please do not hesitate to share them in the comment section below. Remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, so you won't miss any of our captivating and thought-provoking episodes. By enabling notifications, you can stay updated with our latest content. Please feel free to share our channel with your friends and family who may find our informative videos beneficial. We are dedicated to providing you with high quality, thoroughly researched and engaging content that will enhance your English language proficiency and broaden your knowledge. I eagerly anticipate sharing more enlightening and inspiring content with you in the near future.